really quickly, thank you so much for your patience. We have 5 different sessions, and so all the sessions, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to just automatically assign folks, and so we are doing all of this by hand. We have some amazing speakers here in the main room, which is Mark, Manuel, who's former diversity outreach and engagement administrator at the city of Bellevue, and Jess, who is an artist and who will be facilitating the session today. The Just really quickly about the facilitators. And Jess is a featured artist for the summit, earned an undergraduate degree in mathematics, and worked many years in technology as a programmer. If I can have you mute yourself if you are not on mute. Helpful. Um, she has a master's in organizational development, which is focused on systems and thinking processes. She is not an art major, but she loves creative work. Mark Manuel is the former Bellevue Outreach and Engagement Administrator. Mark was hired at the city during the launch of the Diversity Initiative. This gives him insight and facilitates a session. Mark has worked in the community engagement, nonprofit sector, as well as municipal government. He wholeheartedly believes that engaged neighbors bring forth the best assets in a stronger community. And so I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mark and Anne. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Yuriana. Can everybody hear me? Or someone? Yuriana, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I want to make sure that this works out okay, and I'll get going here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you and welcome. I'm so excited that we're here together to do some visioning for this future for the city of Bellevue. Before we begin, as we did before, it's important that we do a land acknowledgement, that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish, past and present. We recognize that these lands were filled with the Suquamish, Duwamish, Nisqually, Snoqualmie, and Muckleshoot tribe. It's important to understand that this is their native land and that their descendants live among us. So good afternoon, everyone. It really is such a pleasure to be part of this important summit. My name is Mark Manuel. Pronouns are he and him. My official title is Pa. I'm an online teaching assistant, runner of errands, cooker and cleaner of things at home, AKA I've been a stay-at-home dad for the last 2.5 years. But prior to this amazing role, I've had the immense pleasure of working in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles in the fields of social services, education, and municipal government. 3 of those lucky years right here with the Diversity Advantage team in Bellevue. So it's so great to be back. I actually showered today. I tucked in my shirt, and now I get to talk to adults. So I'm really excited about this. And of course, we are lucky enough to have the very talented artist Anne Jess working with us today. Anne, can you please say a quick hello?
I would have to unmute myself to do that. Yes, I'm really happy to be involved today. I've been working with the city of Bellevue in the neighborhoods group since 2015. So I'm really happy to be working with another group. So thank you for including me.
Great, thank you so much, Anne. She'll be listening into our sessions and will be creating a visual representation of the themes, ideas, and words she hears from all of you today. More than likely, we'll need some time to be able to refine the artwork, but you'll be lucky enough to be able to see her progress as we move along through the session. And I hear you also will get copies of the piece that Anne puts together. So I think that's really exciting. All right, overview. So in our session today, we're really going to work to break out of our conventional mindset and explore what is possible from the experts, all of you in the building. We'll be painting a picture from our collective thoughts and thinking around the possibilities of building a city that centers racial equity And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll go into that a little bit more, but that's something that's been a little bit different from us. So what are the possibilities around building a city that centers racial equity? A city that really successfully has shown that indeed Bellevue welcomes the world and truly believes and understands and builds off the idea that diversity is our strength. So Ann and I will be mining your thoughts and ideas, looking for these golden nuggets that can help us really think about this work differently and provide the city some information about how to think about this work differently as well. But before we do that, it's equally important for me that we have the opportunity to introduce the experts, all of you in the room. You know, obviously we've got a ton of people online and there's no way we can do this individually. So we're going to rely heavily on the chat feature here. And I really agonized about how to do kind of this exercise. And my 6-year-old daughter says, well, when you kind of start off, you usually say hello. So I wasn't sure if it was really that simple, and sure enough, it is that simple. So if in the chat feature, if you can please put your name, how long you have lived, worked, or played in Bellevue, and then an interesting question, what are different ways you culturally greet each other? And then as we share some of those, I'd love for people to unmute and share their answers as well. So if you can jump on the chat feature and share your answers, and if we can have some folks unmute, that would be fantastic.
Hi there. I apologize. It looks like we're having a bit of an issue getting the facilitators in here. And so they're going to log out and then come back in. Thank you all for your patience, and we'll be right with you. Thank you.
Residing in Bellevue, member of the Bellevue Rotary Club, and part of my goal of being in this session is to take back to our Rotary Club some of the ideas and concepts and practices that we may be able to use to make sure that that we represent the city, the community with diversity and inclusion. So
great. Thank you, Chuck. I just want to make sure that we're not going to be able to all kind of go in depth on that. I appreciate you doing that, Chuck. But if you can stick to how long you've lived, worked, or played in Bellevue, and then different ways people culturally greet each other, if you have different ways. And then, so go ahead and popcorn. We're going to open this up. So if you're interested, go ahead and introduce yourself and answer those questions.
Hi. Who's going?
Go ahead, Pamela. You go ahead first.
Hi, there's another Pam, so a quick shout out to her. But my name is Pamela Elisa, and I'm part of the board at the Bellevue Community College. And been playing in Bellevue for about 17 to 20 years. And I greet everybody with a hug. Smile.
It's been a while.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Nazla Ashkari. I'm the chair of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at City of Linwood. I lived in Bellevue in the mid 80s. I worked in Bellevue in early 2000, and now I'm back working in Bellevue. And different ways we culturally greet each other in the Persian community is with salam.
Hi, my name is Shore Denny, and I am not a resident of Bellevue, and I live in Riverside County, and we are looking at you and we are looking at what you guys are doing. So I wanted to let you know that I am here and very excited to learn what Bellevue is doing in the name of adversity and diversity.
Welcome.
Hi. Hello. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh yeah, we can.
Okay, sorry. My name is Angie Nojos. I'm Executive Director of Centro Cultural Mexicano in Redmond. I've been around Bellevue for about 20 years in different ways. And when I meet somebody, I like to kind of just try to see what they may be comfortable with and try and connect with them at their comfort level, whether that's physical touch or distance or whatever it is. I think everybody has different ways, and just trying to find that balance and that comfort zone of personal connection. Thanks.
Hi, folks. My name is Iris Childress. I'm with Microsoft here in downtown Bellevue. I've lived in Bellevue for 5 years. I'm from San Francisco, California. And when I greet people, I start with, good morning, how are you? Or good afternoon, how are you? Depending upon the time of day. I'm supposed to be in session 4, but don't have the link, so I'm going to join you all this afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nona Dhawan. I'm a cultural outreach assistant with the City of Bellevue. I've lived in the area for about 20 years. I usually say hi, but I also say namaste. I also say Sat Sri Akal, which is Punjabi, and what Sikhs do, how Sikhs greet each other. I don't know if you heard me. I got muted.
Yeah, the last part. Do the last part again, please.
I also say namaste and Sat Sri Akal, which is how Sikhs greet each other. It's Punjabi. It's in Punjabi when you say hello to another Punjabi person or specifically Sikh. So.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, my name is.
Oh, go for it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone.
Ladies.
My name is Pearl, and I have played in Bellevue for over 20 years, but I just started a new job in Bellevue, so I'll be working in Bellevue once we return to the office. So I'm working at Amazon now in external affairs, and my family's from Hong Kong, and so when we greet each other is after you say hello, it's often, have you eaten yet? So I don't often greet everybody else like that, but that's how we greet each other.
Is that Nichilama? Is that how you say it in Chinese or in Mandarin?
Oh, sorry, say that again?
I was just asking, is it Nichulama in Mandarin?
Oh yeah, that's in Mandarin. Yes, yes, yeah. In Cantonese, it would be like "食咗飯未啊?"
Thank you. Iris, please.
Oh, I introduced myself already. This is Iris from.
Okay.
Yeah,
We've got a couple more minutes, so I'd love to be able to hear from other folks. We've got a lot of people in the room, so.
Hi, my name is Carlos Jimenez. I'm the chair for Centro Cultural Mexicano in the city of Redmond. I've been around in and out the Eastern County, Bellevue, and this part of the county for the last 25 something years. I'm the founder with Angie Nojos with Centro Cultural Mexicano down in the city of Redmond. So the way we greet everyone in Mexico, and as Mexican Americans, we say in the morning, buenos dias, good morning, buenas tardes, ¿cómo está, how are you? That's it, that's our introduction. But my main goal, I just want to say thank you, gracias. Gracias for inviting us to be part of some conversation, a great dialogue. I think it's time to start talking about equity and inclusion. I've been looking forward for this for the last over 25 years. Because when we talk about equity and inclusion, we always just talk about translating documents trying to say, oh yeah, we understand. I feel you, we feel you. We know how you feel. So I hope the rhetoric can change at this point in time. So I'm really happy to be here. Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias. We have about
I'm
2 more
Pam
minutes.
Guerin, and I'm really happy to be here. Not sure why my webcam's not cooperating, but I usually just greet people with a smile and a nod. I came today because I wanted to maybe understand my daughter's experience better and also the experience of a lot of people at my church, although I'm not here officially representing my church. Good to be with all of you.
Mark, there's a few greetings that I don't know how to spell, and I'm trying to chart them. So if people want to have their greeting on the chart, please put it in the chat for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Gabriel. I have worked in the Bellevue area for about 5 years. I'm the Learning and Development Manager for AAA Washington. And I originally came from the South, so I don't have much of my accent anymore, but I might have greeted you all a few years ago by saying, hey, y'all. But these days, it's just hi, everyone.
That is delightful.
Hold on to that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Becker, and I like to say hi, smile, and give a warm and friendly welcoming greeting to people when I first meet them.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Run Zhu, and you can call me Rainy. I'm a cultural outreach assistant of City of Bellevue, and I speak Mandarin at home. We usually say Happy New Year, like 新年好. We will say 你好, greet other people like 你吃了吗? 您吃了吗? 您吃了吗您呢? Thank you.
Thank you so much. How about one more?
Mark, my name is Nathan. I've been in Bellevue for 4 years. I also work for the city of Bellevue. I came from states of Kansas, Missouri, Florida. Over a third of my life was with Puerto Ricans, and another significant slice of my life was in Japan. So I just say hello, and then I try to learn what is the greeting or the language that people want me to use in addressing them in the future.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Great to see you. All right. So Happy New Year, everyone. I've never in my life been so happy to ring in the new year. 2020, of course, was illuminating to say the least. Then we had the pleasure of meeting 2021. My mind really hasn't computed what we witnessed recently, so I'm still kind of working through that. But one of my learnings and observations through this is the importance of systems, the interconnected agreement of practices, policies, structures that operate together for a purpose. You know, we operate in the way our systems are designed to operate. I'm talking about healthcare, our education system, financial system, energy, political system. I'm also talking about systemic racism. We are in this time seeing resilient systems, inventive systems, failing systems, and outdated systems. But I think the interconnectedness can no longer be denied. We can't look at racism as a person-to-person thing. So I really want to be able to highlight this notion of systemic racism. What is also something that has become super apparent to me is that our systems stay at rest in a state of status quo unless there is a significant shift in the force, right? A major disruption in what we regularly do. And these times are the most malleable for change. And it feels like things are pretty malleable right now. You think about COVID. COVID's changed about how we've done, it's changed how we've done just about everything, how we learn. My role for my first grader has been just totally crazy and trying to figure that out. How we work, how we earn a living, how we stay healthy, how we conference, all these things that have been a change. Black Lives Matter, the largest civil rights movement in history, really global in scale, in response to law enforcement, police brutality and killings. It's a tipping point that really has uncovered some realities in our country, has brought up how divided we are, brought up how we experience things so differently, again, brought up our systems, our justice systems, our systems of laws and punishment, and the unequal nature in how those laws and punishments are doled out. You know, it is really has shown a spotlight on our racial system, particularly for the African-American Black community. You know, it's pushing conversations like this into the mainstream, really kind of talking about the distinct differences between equality, equity, and justice. And it's been interesting and kind of a mind shift because for a lot of us, equality is what we grew up with. The assumption that everyone benefits from the same support, right? That's numerical equality, equal treatment for everyone. Everyone is treated the same. Now this notion, you're hearing about this a lot, equity. Now equity is proportional equality, that there is some level of consideration of the context to make sure it works for everyone, where the actions may not be the same, but the outcome is equal. And then the last one has been justice, where these differences are accounted for and the support systems really cease to exist. And this is where we really want to go. How do we make this work for everyone? And as far as systems.
Mark, this is Iris.
Yes.
I would add liberty as the fourth item, because that to me implies the ability to be free to, from the shackle of systemic racism and sexism and bigotry, and to be able to define and create your own destiny.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Liberty is part of our Constitution. It was part of what our founding fathers wanted. And while they were a homogenous group, it still applies to all of us. And I would love to see liberty interjected and as part of this kind of discussion.
Thank you, Iris. Appreciate that. Webster's definition, you know, there's been a lot of change, but we continue to see the evolution of our understanding of our racial history in the United States. You know, again, there's just been this spotlight to understand that racism was not an act of a few bad apples, but instead an integral part of our system. So Merriam-Webster recently added systemic racism to their definition of racism. Now, this is going to be an incredibly gross oversimplification of racism. But if we talk about the need for racial equity, we really have to kind of talk a little bit about our past. This really stems from our need and greed for body, labor, industry expansion, which really ran parallel to this racial pseudoscience that basically solidified our understanding that people that were not white were less than, and those that were not white served in and were regulated to less than roles in society. Really power and control that eventually became codified in law that upheld this racial hierarchy of whiteness. And this racial inequality, inequity was systemic, it was far reaching. And I think what we have to kind of come to grips with our understanding is that it was lawful. Because the people that were in power got to write the rules, this stuff was lawful. So what I'd like to do for the next 7 slides is I'm going to do a silent scroll where I'm going to have you just kind of read through them as I go through them, and then we'll get into our questions to see what's next. So. So the good part is that we can change the script, right? We're not bound to that. And we've been doing that for quite some time. As we talked about earlier, we've done 20 years of diversity public programming. The city council coming in saying, Bellevue welcomes the world, their diversity is their strength in 2014, the Advantage Plan, and then again today, the 2021 Diversity Advantage Summit. We're hoping to be able to get some ideas from you around how can we do this differently? How can we build off what's already been done? What's next? And how do we participate in that? You know, I was looking at the federal government in Canada, and they had done this report, and the task force that did this report basically said that successful public sector organizations that focused on diversity and inclusion leverage a range of perspectives for innovation. There's productivity and much healthier workplace. And I think, why can't we do that for a city? You know, so we'd like to talk a little bit about that and what that looks like. So the first question, the way that we'd like to do this is if you can, again, add in your chat, because we're not going to be able to get to everyone, but we'll provide some time for people to be able to popcorn around these different questions. And it seemed to work last time. So I'd like you to start here, but if everybody can at least put their answers in the chat so we can capture that, and then popcorn responses. But if you can think back to a time when you were in a situation when you felt included, empowered, and seen, what was the recipe for those things to happen? Okay, so go ahead and add to the chat. And then as you're ready to be able to share with each other, we'll do that. We'll do this for we'll do this question for 10 minutes. All right, so does anybody like to share?
Mark, I'll start.
Okay.
I was typing it to you. The instances that I have felt more empowered and included was when I had my own company. I've run companies now for myself 3 times in my life. And our system, our financial systems, and certainly our tax laws, and the ability to create wealth are really set up for folks who own their own companies or their own businesses. And when I counter that with having to work for corporations and be subject to some of the biases and bigotry and lack of diversity and inclusion that exist in companies that I have worked for, I really prefer the working for myself and being independent and having to charter the globe that way with systems that are supportive of me versus working in an environment where the systems are not as supportive.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Who else would like to go?
I know for me, this is Pamela Elisa. The time I felt really empowered and recognized and supported was when I graduated from the University of Washington School of Social Work with a master's degree. And I started my first professional job working with people, disadvantaged families, working with people who were homeless, and working with people who were oppressed. And I just felt heard and seen, and because I had lived, you know, being disadvantaged as a woman of color. And I felt so good to be able to change programs to impact people positively. And then most recently, of course, with the Black Lives Matter, you know, I watched in horror as people tried to figure out what that actually meant. And then finally marching, you know, with our local church and organizations, marching in the street, because I realized, although I felt Black Lives Matter globally, historically they didn't. And then I guess what was hindering people was that additional Black Lives Matter too, putting that additional word at the end so that people finally understood everybody's lives seem to matter except Black lives. So during that movement, I felt heard and understood, and it's just been quite a tremendous growth experience going through these last 4 years of Trump administration and what happened, of course, yesterday.
Thank you.
Mark, this is LaDonna Jemison. I am a former council member, and even though I was very visible and busy in the community and active, I didn't seem to receive the inclusivity, or I didn't have the empowerment, and I wasn't being seen until I had that position role, which is unfortunate. But the fortunate thing was it was an elected position, so I had a lot of people in support of my efforts.
Thank you. Who else would like to go? I know you're just on the tip of unmuting, so go for it.
I'll go next, Mark. I volunteered with an organization in Seattle called Legal Voice, and in many different roles, starting as a phone volunteer. And that I had just moved to Seattle, and this particular organization has wonderful people working who always welcomed people. Let me speak for myself. I felt welcomed and included and heard, seen and heard, but most of all heard. My perspective was sought and heard. And I think to me that was very important, especially since I had just moved to the area and I am an immigrant. So it's a great organization, and I value the experience volunteering for them.
Thank you, Nona.
Thanks.
Hi, I'll go. My name is Laniqua Bell, and I work over at the Museum of Flight, and my job is to recruit more Black and Brown kids into aviation, and particularly the space flight and engineering pathways. And I think I feel included, empowered, and seen for marginalized groups when I recruit like 200 kids come through the door and they're brown, and people's faces stop, or mentors show up that work in the field, because too many times people will say, we cannot find the students, or they're hard to reach, or we cannot find the role models. And when they show up, I just feel empowered, because I'm like, I told you so. I'm seen, because these students matter, and it's not like they shouldn't be a part of aviation, and their communities have contributed to it since the beginning, and included because the Museum of Flight has voted with their feet to make sure that these kids also have the same pathways.
Thank you, Laniqua.
Welcome.
A couple more.
Hi, I'll go next if anyone is gonna go next. Okay, this is Carlos. When I feel the empowerment and got noticed, I'm a former council member. So when I got elected, right after I got elected, even within the election, but after, it was a feeling of a trust being deposited on my actions, everything that I was saying, everything that I was doing, every action that I took. I feel that that empowerment that my community has trusted in me. It gave me some air to breathe. It took years and years and years and years of really hard work to be noticed, to try to make my community be noticed, raising our voices from the chili picker fields with farm workers. I was a member of the Immigrant Workers Freedom Rights, and I recall the peaceable gathering of over 100,000 workers in New York for what we just saw yesterday, and it's sad. But the empowerment that the community gives you at one point in time, you can feel it, you can sense it, but it also brings with them the responsibility that we need to embrace and that we need to take. So I think being empowered is given by trust. That's what I can tell you.
Great. Thank you so much, Carlos. Is there a possibility, Yuriana, to be able to look at Anne and get a quick peek at what she's doing?
Yeah, and if you want to go ahead and share your screen, you should have
Okay.
co-host capabilities.
I'm going to give it a shot. It's going to take your screen off, Mark.
Okay.
Let's see if it's updated. Oh, there it is. That's the beginning with all of our ways of saying hello and greeting, and then looking at systems and how to disrupt them. And then just this conversation now. How are you included, empowered, seen? So
that's very cool. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so. All right, so the next question is a poll question, and Yuriana, I don't know if you were able to set this up. I mean, we can do it as a poll question. Were you able to do this?
Mark, we were not. If you are able to have folks answer in the question in the chat, that would be best.
Yeah, that's not a problem whatsoever. And the question here is, these are the guiding principles that the city of Bellevue, as we first started working on this, it was important for us to be able to pull out some of these principles that would guide our work. And the clever way that you can remember this is AEIOU. So it very much follows that. A, access, E, equity, inclusion, opportunity, and understanding cultural competency. So these are the things that we've committed to as we are doing this work. The question that I have for you is, which of the guiding principle resonates with your experience in Bellevue? Access, equity, inclusion, opportunity, and understanding. So if you can type in the chat which one really resonates for you and your experience here. And then again, would love to be able to hear and popcorn out when you guys are ready. And I'd love to be able to hear from voices I haven't heard from as well. That would be great.
Okay, so Chuck Doland here. As I mentioned, I've been in Bellevue for a long time. I've had the opportunity to sit on a few community boards, neighborhood boards, associations. My work with the Rotary Club enabled me to be part of the Kerry Bozeman, John Ellis, and others Downtown Park Initiative when we acquired the property from the Bellevue schools and decided to make that into the downtown city park.
Thank you.
I think the idea there was to create a welcome facility that that just enabled people to participate. We specifically avoided it becoming an athletic park or other specific activity by design. And then more recently, our Rotary Club partnered with the city of Bellevue to put in the playground area. And that really improved the inclusiveness of the park to persons with disabilities who might not have otherwise been able to enjoy that. So I think it's just a great thing. My newest interest really was a reaction or response to the Black Lives Matter activities of this past summer. So I'm just excited about being here and being part of it.
Thank you, Chuck. So it sounds like inclusion really has been a backbone of the work that you're doing with the Rotary and making sure people feel welcome, people of all abilities feel welcome.
That's absolutely correct.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Who else would like to share?
Hi, this is Brooke. I started to say something in the chat, but for me, I think, you know, equity is really important. Creating a fair and just community is something that are core values to me in my personal life and my faith community and other things. And I think it's important to recognize that we don't create a fair and just community, or we can't, without opportunity and the sharing of prosperity. And I think so much of, you know, the many challenges that we face, you know, both locally and statewide and, you know, globally even is around how we are sharing prosperity with our neighbors.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yes, hi, this is Robert Rose. And I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Chuck Doland said. I also am in Bellevue Rotary Club, and I helped with the Inspiration Playground in the downtown Bellevue Park. So access, inclusion, I think those are really key elements. If you can't access the, you know, the wonderful things in our city that make it unique, then it's not just or fair or equitable. So also I work in Nepal helping people with disabilities with my nonprofit. So I see a country that's like so far behind where we are, but it also kind of gives you perspective and you know, have worked in Nepal to work on disability awareness and improving the perception of people with disabilities.
Thank you for being here, Rob.
Namaste. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Chuck.
I'm Andrew Wang. I'm IT manager at City of Bellevue. One area I want to emphasize is opportunity, because before I joined City of Bellevue as an employee, I'm part of a police community academy. I was part of the program, and we attend like 10 classes, go through all aspects of police work, and I had read along with police officers. That gave me a much better understanding the work the police officers do, and have a much stronger connection with the city, and contributed to my decision to joining City of Bellevue, and especially during the Black Lives Matter protest. And I have a much better understanding of the difficulties, challenges police have to deal with day to day, and I can speak to my community members and immigrants have similar background as me to make the connection. I think having those kind of opportunities can really help. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angie Nojos from Centro Cultural Mexicano. And I would like to emphasize opportunity. I think we talk a lot about who's at the table, who's at decision making, but I think sometimes we can rely on organizations and agencies where really we could be cultivating leaders from within the communities, where we could be empowering individuals from within the communities to be able to be those leaders. And so I would like to see more cultivation of leaders. You know, there's a place for all of it. There's a place for all of it, but I think we need to, we have to rely less on the connections that people have and more on providing more opportunity for those leaders to emerge and be supported. Thank you.
I think it'd be great to be able to have leaders from the community grow your own. Thank you for that.
Hi, Mark. This is Sujata Agarwal. So inclusion and opportunity are the two that kind of resonate. I moved to Bellevue 5 years ago, a new person in a new city, and I attended cultural conversations, which for me was the real introduction to finding a community and finding a safe space to know that even though I am not from here, I can still be a part of the community. And that led to a lot of opportunities, networking, and to a job.
Thank you. It's so great to see you. Any last one? Okay. What I'd like to do now, actually, I'd love to be able to hear from folks that we haven't heard from before, and some folks that we have. This should be fairly fast. If diversity truly is our strength, what are our biggest assets to work from? And this is something that's really important to me. You know, when I was doing youth development work, there's this big thing about 40 developmental assets. These are all the assets that children need, both internally and externally, to be able to work off of. And it was incredible being able to work off their strengths. And if we recognize that diversity is a strength for us here at the City of Bellevue, I'm wondering again if we can popcorn 1 to 3 word around what are our biggest assets to be able to work from. So I'd like to be able to open that up to the crowd, please.
Hi, Mark. This is Greg Schrader. I guess I would answer that question by saying that in a diverse community, I think our biggest asset is what I might call our cultural intelligence, which is that the broad spectrum of the ability of the collective community to reach out and understand all parts of that community. And I think it just gives us so much more power to face any challenge, any problem, and overcome it, because it's always the miscommunication or the division between people that cause us to fail in our missions in life.
Thank you. I really love that. Who else would like to share?
This is Carlos Jimenez. I'm going to say just on a really short sentence that I do believe the mentoring, empowering, and engaging, that should be our strongest asset, at least for Centro Cultural Mexicano. That has been our biggest and stronger asset.
Thank you.
I think it's a strength that we have so many different cultural communities here. So there's a lot of opportunities for interaction. And like you said, we've just kind of tipped that halfway point where it's a majority minority city or whatever they used to say. I also think some of the faith communities are making a great effort and have a lot of diversity naturally, and could be a resource for getting information out to people and making them feel comfortable participating.
Yeah, the faith communities, that's a great one. Thank you, Pam, for being able to share that. And I think that builds off of what we heard as well. What are other strengths that we need to be looking at and working off of?
Mark, it's Iris again. I think we can certainly leverage the fact that we're a diverse community to get out of the vernacular of minority, majority, et cetera, where we can, because we are a diverse community, just drive that we all belong and that there are no minorities or majorities, but we all share a common set of values, your AEIOUs, and a certain ability to get around the table for the betterment of our community. And if we can leverage that diversity with that mindset, then we don't have that disparity of someone feeling like they are the minority and voiceless and faceless, someone feeling that they're a majority and that any inclusion is at their expense. And we just get out of that mindset totally.
Thank you.
Thanks, Iris. I would very much agree with that.
Others around the thoughts of the diversity as our strength and recognizing our diversity as our strength.
Mark, this is Angie again, Angie Hinojos. I'll just say that I think as a Mexican American, I would say that cultural pride is a really important part of this, looking at it from my point of view, and because that that pride is what we draw on when we are faced with adversity, our history, our resilience, you know, the struggles that my father, I can see him from where I'm sitting, has gone through. That's where we dig deep and where we keep moving and pushing and going forward. And so I think that is an important part of it, and it can't be discounted. So I would just add that to the conversation.
Great, thank you.
I really love that that she shared. This is Pamela E. about pride. And then for so many years, pride has been tried. The main society has tried to destroy your pride, you know, and undermine your pride. And when you do that, then you just feel worthless. And so I love who just shared the pride and then the openness. And then someone mentioned humility. You can be proud and embrace pride, but you also need to be humble and know that no one's better than or worse than you are, but everyone is worthy and everyone is of worth. So I really am enjoying this breakout session. Thank you, Mark.
To the notion of pride, though, the person who was talking about pride in their community and their ethnicity, nationality, that's my story too. And I think that's where we have the disconnect, is that you just mentioned, you know, the majority culture wants to diminish your pride, but where we need to get to is that I'm using the air quote, majority culture understands that the Scandinavian folks that started this community out here in logging, that's our story too. The Hispanic community who built this community is our story and our and part of our history too. The Asian American groups that have come here and have built and have been here hundreds of years, that's all of our, we should all be proud of all of that and should have, whether you are directly in it or not, a hook in that, and a hook of pride and a hook of understanding that that's your story too, and that everyone here has that. It's our history. It's just not, you know, the Japanese story or the Mexican American story or the Scandinavian story, the African American story. It's our story. And the sooner we rally around that and bolster that pride in you and seeing that it's part of me, I think that will help us move forward in this journey that we have together.
No, you know, and I think I appreciate the inclusion of making sure that all those stories are part of the picture. I think, and I think the mind shift and the challenge that we're trying to kind of make is to recognize that these stories are much more rich than we've been presented with. And then I think everybody, I think for white folks, being able to dig into your own background, culture, and history is incredibly important as we continue these conversations as well. So again, thanks for the comments and the
Before we go on, can I, sorry, I just feel like it needs to be noted that in order to do diversity or to be better or to move this needle that we all are rallying around, we have to recognize our own blind spots and even being in the different marginalized groups that we are in. So I may be a person of color, but I'm body abled. So I don't necessarily see the world through someone else's lens that is different than myself. And so for me to move this needle, I have to acknowledge my blind spots and how I contribute to the current narrative, and so I feel that we can't undo structural racism. We can't undo anything until we realize, I mean, we come to trainings or talks and we are here in this moment or in this space, and it's very brave for us to speak up, but not all of us, these lessons don't necessarily translate when we get back into our spaces. And so we can add to the narrative instead of trying to figure out what we can do in our role or in our lives to change or undo our own biases. And so in order to answer your question, we just can't do that if we don't recognize our own blind spots and then figure out what we're contributing to in which marginalized group and correct it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think we have to recognize that we all have incredible blind spots. And I think it comes back to the listening as well. How do we stop ourselves from already having this preconceived idea of what this person is we're going to say, and how do we listen and how do we learn in recognizing that there are things that I just don't know about the history, about all those things that you mentioned. So that was so perfect in being able to share that. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I'd like to go to the next question, and this really kind of comes back to city government. So you can choose one of the three to be able to answer, and we can share our responses. What role do you see city government in making this vision possible? How can community work with city government in this venture? And what opportunities or risks does the community and city need to have Bellevue truly welcome the world? So again, if you wouldn't mind, we are capturing all of this data via chat. And then we'd love to be able to hear from you as well. And then Anne, I don't know if it's cool if we can take a peek as we're doing this last one at what you got going on. I know you're in the middle of something here. Can you talk us through some of the? All right. Oh, and you're on mute.
I make so much noise when I'm working, so. So I just included the guiding principles and then some of the comments about those. And then the question of diversity is our strength. If diversity is our strength, what are our biggest assets? And so these are just some of the comments. And some of them are connected, empowerment of others, also goes along with engaging others, pride, cultural pride in your own history, and also moving toward a communal pride in our history. But their key is the ability and willingness to recognize our own cultural blind spots and correct them by learning.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
so
then
much.
the rest of this is for the next section.
All right, so if folks would like, oh, can you stop the screen share?
Yes, I will. Oh, sorry. And I'll mute myself too.
All right. Okay, so if you can see the screen, again, answering these questions, particularly around the role of city government and how you can partner with city government, what does city government need to be doing? So I'd like to open it up, please. No one has thoughts on this?
Well, I have some thoughts. This is Angie Hinojos again. I think that the city can take some risks on some maybe innovative or unconventional ways to approach this. Maybe risks on less established groups or less established organizations who may have direct contact with hard to reach communities. Maybe take risks on, sometimes culturally we have some ideas that we know will work for our particular communities. They may look different or a little odd to decision makers who are trying to figure out how to fund different propositions, but trust the community leaders to know what will resonate within their own communities. And I'm just going to say that over and over again. Trust is huge. The community trust, the trust coming from our institutions. Without that trust all the way around, we are just not going to be able to accomplish this work. And that starts with the relationships and going from there. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Angie. Who else would like to chime in?
I've been kind of quiet because I'm not actually from Bellevue, but I've been thinking about kind of what you were saying, the person who was before me. If we even look at things like the application process, sometimes our ideas about how things should be applied for comes from a dominant culture perspective. And so even looking at something like that, one of the things we can look at in, if it's organizations applying for arts funding, say, who is it that applied that was not successful, or who was it that inquired that didn't follow through with an application, and then really asking some additional questions about why didn't you follow through, or why weren't they funded, and then taking another look at that application process to see if there's something about that process that is reflective, maybe subtly, of systemic racism or bias.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Hi, this is Pam. I really like that last comment. I actually like everybody's comments, but I really like that last comment because the city of Seattle, when you apply for arts and grants, they will have town halls or workshops, and they'll have a grant advisory person to help walk you through things. And so if they had that, if you did have the same concept for people applying for employment or grants or whatever, and they had someone take a look at who was not successfully funded and why, or they didn't finish your application or why, that would really be a game changer, because then we could dig into looking at an application through another culture's eyes and take a look at the systemic racism or the barriers. I don't even want to use the word racism, but maybe the barriers to that application. That would just be phenomenal. So I really appreciate that conversation.
I was even thinking about this. I went to a workshop for the folks in Tacoma to apply for arts funding, and that's kind of what made me think about it. And one of the stipulations was your organization had to, your primary purpose of the organization had to be culture and arts. And I had to stop and think, in some communities, that's not realistic, because there may not be the financial resources to have a separate organization that's just focused on culture and arts. So they may have, a historical organization that includes arts activities or things like that. And so even just having that one stipulation ruled out some groups that I think we want to fund. We want to, promote their participation in the community using that type of funding. So even something small as that, I think we should look at.
Yeah, and that makes the difference between someone being able to participate and someone not being able to participate. So those are very good points. We've got about 4 minutes left, and I'd like to get to the last question. Future jump. Let's say the Space Needle all of a sudden became a time warp, and we jumped in the future and we succeeded in bringing the council vision to life. I'd love to be able to hear from you guys. Love to hear from folks that we haven't heard from, and also city folks. I know that there are City of Bellevue folks out here. And I know you've been so great at being quiet and listening, but I'd love to be able to have you guys share as well, because that's how we connect together. So again, the future jump, what do you see? We succeed at doing this.
I guess my comments relate to this, but also perhaps a little bit to the last question. And at the risk of invoking other concerns, part of the problems and issues in the city of Seattle had to do with policing. And that is definitely a function of the city. I think that Chief Millett has done just a marvelous job in managing the Bellevue Police, and I think we have to make sure that we continue to audit, follow up, check, and make sure that we're providing equity and justice in those areas.
Thank you, Chuck.
To piggyback on that, I'd like to see government workers, people that work for our government, whether it's the city workers, the police and the fire folks, if they're not already able to own property and be part of the community that they serve, that's what I'd like to see in the future. We rely on our city workers, our police and firemen for our health, safety, and just wellness in our community. And I want to see them being able to have the same kind of opportunities, economic access, as those of us who are in the non-public sector space to be part of Bellevue.
Thank you. Last couple comments. We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more comments.
A really short comment. This is Carlos Jimenez. I really like to, for the future, to see a real practice of equity and inclusion, but in reality, real practice of equity and inclusion, but show results. Show the results, show the outcome, the cities or the city is really practicing equity and inclusion. I think we are really far. This is the start, but I've been waiting in my case for this for 50 years, 50 long years. And now we're talking. Is that gonna take 25 more years to really show the outcome? So I'll invite everyone to really show results. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's a great way to end this session. No, we don't have to wait, but we want to plan for the future and ensure that we're doing this right. So those that come after us get to experience something different. So I know that our time is up. Thank you so much for everyone and for being here and for sharing. We will be taking time to, again, peruse and look at the material that we captured today, and we'll put that into use. I appreciate your comments, and thank you, Anne. Anne, can we get one last look before we take off? Is it possible?
Yes, and I just want to acknowledge that I did not capture everything yet, but I saved the chat and oops, is it going? Share, here we go. Sorry, I am still, I'm going to work on filling in that right section with all of the ideas from the chat and the different things that were talked about in that last segment. So wonderful, I think, ideas to take back to the city.
Great. All right, thanks everyone, appreciate it. And I'll release you so we can get back out to the main session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Can we give a virtual round of applause for both Anne and Mark, who did a fantastic job today here with us. I want to thank all of you for being patient with me. There was a lot of technical issues and a lot of technical background work. And so I hope that you really had an opportunity to enjoy Mark and Anne's presentation. I sure did myself. And we will, I am seeing some comments, we will consolidate a lot of the information that we've heard today, as well as the graphic that Anne has created, and it will be emailed to all of you for just a reflection of what we've created as a vision for our community today. And so again, thank you so much. We will be taking a 5-minute break. The next portion of the event is reflection 1 on what we learned, what other folks learned in other sessions, as well as we're gonna do a little bit of networking. So if you wanna stick around and network with those who, I know that, you know, we had over 280 folks in the room today. And so if you wanna make connections with individuals in a smaller breakout room, please stick around. At this point, we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be right back. Thank you. And please feel free to, you know, answer or ask any questions in the chat, and then I'm keeping track of them as well, and we'll follow up with you. Thank you.